Hey. What's up, guys? Node Investor here. Hey, guess what? The live stream is actually working today. Man, we tried to do this last week, and I almost threw my mouse at the wall, but it's all good. And let me just send out a quick tweet, let people know this is a little bit of an impromptu stream today, but market's looking good. Happy to have you here as always. We'll take a look at the charts. What is going on? Bitcoin finally breaks out of this very nice pattern. And let's be honest, I mean, this pattern was like just so bullish all week. I've been posting this on the Slack group and we've been talking about this. I hate to say this, it was almost too easy, right? It was like ascending triangle. I even drew these little lines in the Slack group before it happened. I was thinking, hey, this would be best case scenario. Of course, it could have double topped. Absolutely, that was on the table. But my rationale was as long as it continues to hold up around this $7,200, I'm going to stay with it. What I'd like to see is this higher low and then a little bit of a breakout, tightening up. And sure enough, I mean, it just textbook example played out almost perfectly. Couldn't have asked for any better. Going into the weekend, we saw that nice pop yesterday. I just happened to catch it live. It was great just because it was kind of a mid-afternoon for me, and I was doing some chart scanning, and all of a sudden my alert started to pop here, and I was like, here it goes. And sure enough, as soon as it closed over 8,200, sent out a tweet saying it's happening. And little did we know, right? We'd be at 8,900 in basically an hour or two. So good stuff all around. We'll take a look at the charts. We'll look at some alts setups that I'm keeping an eye on here as we head into the new weeks. Some things to be watching. Bitcoin, of course, is getting all of the press right now with all of the new highs in 2019 and the stunning, it's a good word for it, the stunning rally that has ensued here over the last couple of months. It was, I wouldn't say it's a straight off the bottom, but I mean, pretty much, it was the straight down in November, December, a little bit of sideways action. And after February, I mean, just literally straight up, especially after that breakout over 4,200, it's just been quite the move. Eventually, there will be a pullback. There will be a correction, a deeper pause, right? But in the big picture, the longer term, I think we're absolutely still in a bull market here. Of course, there's some levels to be watching on the way down, but my approach right now is if we do start to see that pullback, that'll be a place for me to add in terms of longer term holds, that sort of thing. But it's been quite the rally here over the last couple of months. I always say I wish I would have bought more at the 3s and 4s than I did. I was starting to scoop some up here. I didn't quite accumulate the amount that I wanted to here. I wasn't necessarily going all in. My plan was to just kind of, dollar cost average over the sub 6K range. But so much for that, huh? But nonetheless, I'm glad I picked up what I did at that time. So we'll get into all of that. Let me start catching up on the comments here. Thank you for listening at the gym. I will be going to the gym later after this. Stock market's closed today, so it's a little bit of a holiday for me here in the States. Memorial Day. Happy Memorial Day for all of you listening here. And, it's kind of a quiet day. I decided to come into the office for a few hours, doing some, reviews of last week's trade, some journaling, all that boring stuff that is very important. And, decided let's do some live stream. I've been meant to do one last week. The folks on the Slack are, hey, let's do a live stream. And I thought, that's a good idea. So we'll go ahead and do that. The other thing that I want to post here, many of you waited around last week for me to come online, which of course I never did because of the technical issues. And so as a little bit of a bonus for those of you that did hang around, and I took a screenshot of some of the comments so I can remember who was here. And so I didn't get, obviously, everybody's names. But if you were here, let me see here. I'm going to give away some courses today. And so I appreciate you guys hanging out. I'm going to give away 2 courses. And so let's just get that out of the way so we can get to the stream here. So as you guys know, I have nodeinvestor.com on the training page. There is the new, somewhat new, it's been out for a couple of months now, but the new 4-step cryptocurrency course. I sell it for $290, which is a discounted rate, the bundle package. And so I'm going to give away 2 of those here today during this live stream. And so let's get to that here. Let me go to my screenshot here. Who was here last week? If you're here today, you're going to get lucky and to get some of these here. So I know some of the Slack groups were here. Some of the Slack folks, let's see here. S13, Paolo, Jeffrey Bailey was in the house, PW, Cody G, who else? Corey, Get Kaz, Samp 117, Get Kaz, there we go, AP, there we go. All right, so there you go. That's going to be our winners for today, guys. So thank you, guys. Get Kaz, AP, do me a favor, please. If you don't want to drop your email on here, that's fine. You could do that. I'll set up your course and send you an email. Otherwise, send me an email to support@nodeinvestor.com with a screenshot of your Gmail so I know it's really you. And I'll get those set up today before I call it a day. So, all right. So we'll do that. And there's going to be another. Oh, actually, you know what? I set up a discount code today for this course. Let's just do that now. So I'm going to pop this here in the comments. So May 2019. If you use that discount code, if you're interested in buying this course, there's two ways to get access to this course here. I'll go over the first way, obviously, on nodeinvestor.com. If you use that and you decide to purchase that here, there's a discount link. I've set up a new code here that will be active through the month of May, all caps, May 2019. If you hit apply, you'll see that's a $40 discount on the course. So you'll get the course for $250. Anybody that buys the course also gets an invite to the Slack group that we have going. And then, of course, the other way to get it is if you are a subscriber to the Node Insiders alert system. That is a bonus material here, training courses. You get all of that. Here, let me get your email, Jez, before I miss that. Thank you for posting that. I've got your email. I'll go ahead and get that set up later here today for you. But anyway, you can get the video courses here, and I'll continue to add to this here later this year. I'll add some more. I've got some things that I'm keeping an eye on. So anyway, without further ado, so I'll post this here again a couple times later for those that are joining late. May 2019 is the discount code if you guys want to use that. So let's get to it. All right, looking at the Bitcoin price chart here first. Let me pull something up here. I'm going to pull up my little notepad here just so we can take some notes for those of you that want to review certain charts. I won't forget because I always do. Let's see here. There we go. Go multi-screening here. Cool. All right. So looking at the Bitcoin, of course, everybody knows what's going on here. We had this very solid breakout of a beautiful ascending triangle pattern here. That was just really, the last week was just kind of chop, right? It was a good consolidation week. We had this pullback and then up, and then, you know, for the most part last week, I took a few shots at some of the alts, but it was just, you know, it was just sideways. There wasn't a whole lot of momentum. I got stopped out on a few alts. And so it was just kind of one of those, let's just wait and see. I was keeping an eye on things, but it was a slower week. And really, it was just a good, healthy consolidation week, which turned out to be basically setting up this really nice ascending triangle base, which we saw playing out. Now, early in the week, of course, there was the potential that, you know, we were going to see this thing roll over, make a little bit of a double top. And absolutely, that was on my radar. And so, you know, I'm not saying that I was 100% bullish. It was going to go either way. I was holding BTC until it either broke out or until it broke down. And really the level I was watching on the way down was this $7,200 level. The reason that was an important level at the time, one, this is where some support showed up here on the 4-hour chart. And the second reason was this is also on the daily chart where the 10 EMA was sitting before it popped off of that level. And so at that point, I was thinking if it popped off this level, had this nice little wick down to the 22 EMA on the daily, and it held, at this point, you don't want to see that violated. If it's violated on the downside, then you really have a strong case for a double top at that point. But if it makes a higher low, then at that point, you're most likely going to get a ascending triangle breakout pattern, which is what we ended up seeing, luckily. And so that's what I was looking at. And of course, the big question was, how do the alts react in that sense, right? If Bitcoin breaks out, do the alts pull in? If Bitcoin breaks down, do the alts pull in? If it goes sideways, do we get any kind of alt action? And honestly, I was expecting a little bit more of an alt party during this sideways consolidation than we saw. There wasn't really a whole lot. I mean, there's always names pumping, but it wasn't like an across-the-board thing. And of course, yesterday when Bitcoin broke out, many of the alts saw a pretty quick retracement, but some of them were making for some good dip buy opportunities. I know some of you guys are already in those. EOS was good. Litecoin, there was a handful that are just really nice. And so we'll take a look at those here. Question on the comments, Andrew. Insiders Group, I apologize for that. Let me get back to you on that today. It sounds like you're having an access issue. So let me make a note of that. Thank you for reminding me here, Andrew. So that's what we were looking at. So we'll take a look at the charts here on those other names. But first, let's look at BTC. Where do we go from here? So we had this nice breakout. Now, there was a couple of levels that people were watching. Let me clear my first line. When you do an ascending triangle breakout, people always say the official breakout is, the last high. That's kind of like the textbook way to do it here. My approach is always, what's the lower near-term resistance? Technically, yes, that's the official way. But when you start to see a consolidation taking place, below that level, that's a very good place. If you're not in it, of course, that's a good place to look at as a potential breakout level. It gets you in a little bit early, and generally once it clears that lower resistance level, then you see a pretty quick push through the next level. And so it's just kind of a nice early entry. For me, that level was basically 8,200, right? You could have gotten in a little bit sooner once you saw it breaking above, 8160 or so. But for me, it was 8,200 on the 4-hour chart, a close above 8,200. That was a breakout for me. And sure enough, it hit 8,200 and it was fast. It didn't take long before it started to really zoom through most of these other levels. Here's the 5-minute view. You can see the volume really started to kick in. Here was the big volume candle that basically pushed it from 8130 up to 8250 and just very quickly went through. At that point, I was thinking this is going to go. And sure enough, quick spike higher, nice little pullback, and then finally landed at around 8,800 before pausing a little bit more. So back to the 4-hour view. And so that's how I look at those, right? When I'm looking for those breakouts, I like to see a breakout of above a lower resistance level, not necessarily the wick highs, which is what most people will use. And of course, once it broke 83.20, it was just kind of a quicker move. A lot of stops were hit and that sort of thing on the way up. But on the way up, the next levels that I'm watching here, if we zoom out, the 9,000, which is just a psychological round number, and generally a little bit before that, because you're going to get some front running into that level. And of course, that's what you're seeing here. You saw a little bit of front running and went as high as 89.60 or 89.50, pulling back, a little bit of a bounce today, sucked some people in, and then a pretty good reversal candle here on this 1 hour on higher volume, still holding up above the moving averages. So you got to give it the benefit of the doubt if, as long as it continues to hold. But you're starting to see that maybe that 9,000 was it. That was that, or not exactly 9,000, but it was, 89.40 or whatever. That could be it. Now, on the way down, if you're looking for a throwback entry, this is a potential place to look at it. And ideally, this is where we want to see some support start to come in if it's going to continue higher to my next target, which is 9,800. So if you look at that, if it does decide to pull back in here today, tomorrow, around 8,300 is where you want to see some support start coming in. This would make for a nice throwback entry on an ascending triangle breakout. And then ideally you'd see a bounce from there and then a push higher to the next targets. Now on the way up here, let's zoom out to the daily because this is important. So this is what I'm watching here. We've had an amazing move here over the last couple of months and it's getting a lot of press. It's getting a lot of attention. And one of the things I alluded to yesterday was this could be the last breakout that either hits 9,000 or 9,800. At this point, you're going to get a lot of attention. There's going to be so much news on this, people talking about, oh my God. And then the last of the FOMO buyers are going to start to step in at that point. You're going to really get sucked in and say, I got to get this. I can't wait anymore. It's going to 10K tomorrow and then 15 and 20 by the end of the month. And here we go. And then you'll get a little bit of a pause, finally a deeper pullback, right? And so that's what I'm keeping an eye out. I'm going to still hold until we actually get some solid sell signals. I mean, the trend is your friend. It's bullish, but it is feeling a little bit exhausted, feeling a little bit more of a need of a pause pullback. And the thing I'm going to be keeping an eye on is if it does continue into these next two targets, let's say it goes as high as 9,800, and it could just stop here at 9K, but let's say it goes to 9,800. What does the RSI and the MACD histogram look like? Right now, the potential, again, potential, it's not anything confirmed, but the potential for a bearish divergence to show up on this daily chart is really starting to set up here. And if you have a lower RSI with price kind of spiking that high and volume, people kind of FOMOing that climactic push, if it starts to roll over and break back below that 8,200 very quickly, then that's going to tell me this is probably due for a little bit more of a pullback at this point, right? Again, I'm not saying here comes the bear market and we're back to 3K. That's definitely not what I'm anticipating. But could this be a deeper pullback, a better buying opportunity? Potentially, yes. And that's what I'm looking for. Actually, that's what I'm hoping for, to be honest, because it needs a pause. It needs a pullback. And as much as I want this price to just keep going up to 20K, stair-stepping along the way, setting up, clearing a little bit of the euphoria, it just kind of makes for a little bit more sustainable move over the long term. And plus, if you're looking to add, that'd be a great place to start looking to add, right? So that's what I'm looking at here. So on these upside targets, 9K, this happens to line up with some prior resistance back here. If you go to April of 2018, we're looking at these highs. And this is amazing that we're talking April of 2018 and just very quickly undid all of the chop and slop that we saw last summer. And here we are testing these resistance levels. And so that's how I'm getting my levels here. 9K psychological does round a little bit with this point that broke down here in May, mid-May. And then, of course, this little double top type of peak that we saw here last year, April, May, is your resistance around that 9,800. And so that's how I'm getting those two levels. That's what I'm looking at here. I know some of you guys are looking at like the Fibonacci extensions and all that. It kind of lines up with that. If you're looking at the cloud, the Ichimoku levels, there's some, lining up with that on the resistance. So it's just kind of interesting to see that confluence of levels line up. Longer term, I think we'll go past that level. Absolutely. What happens between now and then, it's anyone's guess. And, it could certainly just spike right to that and then pull right back here over the next week. But this is what I'm looking at, potential bullish or bearish divergence. But this pattern, I mean, just beautiful, beautiful textbook ascending triangle base with the breakout. I mean, just, you couldn't ask for any more than that. Just very nice. Now looking at the pattern that we just saw break out, if you do a measured move on this, and this is just one way to project targets, there's a couple schools of thought. I generally go the conservative path and I'll take the smaller dip, project that out. If you did that, you basically have hit your target now, right? You can see that was projecting out to around 88, 90 or so, 8,900. That's been hit. If you did the more aggressive target and you went from here to here and you project that guy out, then the next big target after that is about 9,350, right? So, or excuse me, let me pull that in. About 9,300, right? 92, 9,300. So those are the ways to do that. But, at this point, like I always say, one day at a time. Price action at the end of the day is ultimately what I watch out for. Yes, you make projections. Yes, you look at what are potential support and resistance levels, absolutely necessary. But at the end of the day, it's the price action, the price and volume action that really drives the decision-making day to day here. Is it holding up above key levels, moving averages? Is there, engulfing candles, all that good stuff. So that's it for BTC here. Thanks for being here, guys. Smash that like button and let's get to it. So if you're just joining here, we did a little giveaway. Some of the folks that waited around last week for the live stream that never happened, I gave away 2 of the courses here that are on noteinvestor.com. If you want to take advantage of that, I'll put this in the video note descriptions when I'm done, but there's a discount code that will run through the end of the week here. So basically through Friday, which is May 31st, all caps, discount code May 2019. That'll give you $40 off of the course here. And if you want to know a little bit more about the course before you buy it, of course, there's a video here. You can see a course overview, kind of what's included. It's much, much more in depth than my original technical analysis course. This course is only 3 hours long, which you get included with your purchase, by the way. And this is little, I would think it's probably about 13 hours all in all, right, with all the different strategies and all that. So, all right. I'll put that in the notes when I'm done so I don't forget. So May 2019. All right, let's get to some of these other names. So looking at the alts, right, there was a good question yesterday in the Slack channel saying, hey, so what happens if Bitcoin finally decides to pause here or have a little bit of a deeper pullback? Do the alts rally, or do we, do the alts tank along with Bitcoin? What's the plan here? What's the expectation here, right? And so and of course, nobody knows exactly, right? This is just my educated guess here. But my expectation is the alts, for the most part, have seen a really deep retracement versus BTC. Many of the alts charts versus Bitcoin are really starting to put in some solid lows, right? You've seen some potential reversals really start to take place. A couple weeks back, we saw a very nice bounce. Now we're seeing a retest of those lows and potential bounces happening again. So I expect that in the event Bitcoin decides to just pause again and put a little consolidation in, you might see a pretty good retracement or rotation into some of those alts. But after that, right, and I'm thinking that could be short-lived, maybe a couple days, maybe a week or two. After that, it's going to really just depend on what happens with Bitcoin. Let's say Bitcoin, rallies and decides to, just kind of chop for a little bit. As long as it's kind of holding up above some key support levels, I think you'll see some rotation / profit taking into the alt pairs. But if Bitcoin really starts to break down and you see the trend accelerate to the downside and it gets steep, just as is always the case, I expect across the board, you'll see the alts take a pretty good hit versus BTC as well, right? That's just the way it generally works. If Bitcoin has that steep of a hit, the alts will generally suffer more than BTC. There's always going to be those names counter trend, but I'm just talking about in general. And so that's what I'm going to watch here. Now, as for the alts, which names are on my radar right now? Litecoin, of course, has the halving coming up here sooner than Bitcoin's. This is in August of this year. It's had a nice little breakout out of this downtrend that it's been in. I do have a trade open on this one right now. It's a little bit more of a swing trade. And there was two reasons for me looking at this one as a swing trade versus Bitcoin. I've been primarily in Bitcoin. Like I said, I've taken some shots at a few alts, which, they were just choppy last week, but this one was looking good. It had that low here a couple weeks back. And I remember we did a live stream that day and I said, I'd like to see a little pullback and a potential double bottom. This is the daily chart, by the way. And sure enough, just a little over a week passed and it made a little bit of a double bottom here at this same level again. And then finally saw a pop right through the line there on some pretty good volume too. So it broke the downtrend line. It really started to confirm this potential double bottom that's forming. It's gotten back above the moving averages. Now, the moving averages on the daily chart haven't seen the bullish crossover just yet. So still kind of in the caution zone, but price and volume look very nice. You're seeing some volume pick up here on Litecoin versus Bitcoin. We'll look at the USD chart here. That one's also breaking out with BTC, of course. And so what I was looking at is even a little bit of a retracement, right? Getting over that, 1400 level versus Bitcoin is my first resistance that I want to see it clear. Then above that, I'm looking at it close to that 1500 as my first target. And then the most recent swing high that we saw in April as my next target. That's a pretty good move, right, over the next potential couple weeks, right? That's 40% versus Bitcoin, right? From this price, not from my entry, but from the current price. And so that's a little bit more of a longer term swing that I'm looking at. Now, do I expect it to go all the way to the top? It could. Maybe you can get some pre-rally into the halvening. But, if it starts to clear that 1500, I will certainly start to either take some off the table or start to tighten the stops here. If it really starts to roll over from that 1400, then I'm going to watch it. Maybe go to break even at that point, because it could certainly have a little bit of a throwback here, maybe back to the moving averages or back to the breakout points, and then get going from there. So going to give this one some room. This is more of a swing trade for me, not so much a kind of a quick trade. But, I started to pick up some LTC. Then yesterday when Bitcoin broke out, Litecoin had a little bit of a dip. It was really the only alt trade I was in at the time. And I actually added on the dip just because it was holding up better than most names. And so this was the dip, right? Litecoin was already strong versus Bitcoin. Bitcoin had that breakout, saw the little bit of a shakeout, but it was holding up better than most. So I added a little bit more Litecoin to the trade at that point. And it's bounced back nicely. So I'm staying with it. I still think it's looking good. I expect we could see a little bit more outperformance of Litecoin versus Bitcoin. On the RSI, there is a potential little divergence showing up here, especially with this big reversal candle. So we'll see how that plays out here today. So just, if you're you're looking at it a little bit shorter term, I'd be mindful of that and maybe wait for a pullback or something to the line as a potential secondary entry point here. But on the daily chart, looks pretty good there, especially with that double bottom starting to form. This is a reversal trade. So by definition, they're just a little bit higher risk, lower probability, right? It's not like taking a breakout trade on an ascending triangle. I mean, those are just nice. You can keep a tighter stop. You can load up a little bit more on those. On these reversal trades, I'm a little bit more cautious on these just because you're going counter trend. You're expecting a reversal of the trend, but there's a lot of resistance along the way up. So you just have to be mindful of that. If you do a measured move on this double bottom, it does go right to the 1400 level, which is the 382 Fibonacci retracement level. So interesting to see that, which is why it's an important level that it has to clear. It's also this resistance back here. So that's really kind of the first target that it's got to get over. Then above that, I'd be looking at kind of a move up to this line here. So those are my two levels here. Looking at it from the dollar level, and I'm trading this primarily from the BTC side, but the dollar pair does provide some clues. You saw a nice little bit of a breakout here on the dollar side. Last stream, they asked me where's my target for Litecoin going into the halving. I said 175. So we'll see how that goes. Now, what's this arrow here? Well, that's just really the move there. But you had a little bit of a kind of irregular, but you could call it a little bit of a cup and handle breakout that you saw in Litecoin here over the last couple of days on this dollar pair, right? It felt some resistance here around that $100 mark, pulled back, but this pullback was very constructive. Lower volume, right to the moving average pair, never violated that, and then started to break out here today. So if you did a measured move on that, where does that take us here? Looking at the dollar pair, I'm going to go from here to the line. We'll extrapolate that here. Haven't done EOS yet. I just Bitcoin and just doing Litecoin now, so we'll certainly do that. And then so using a measured move, target on this guy is basically 128 on the way up. So we'll see how that goes. Hit popped over 120 today, so that was kind of nice before BTC had a little bit of a pullback. We'll see how this one plays out. But again, there's some fundamental catalysts here that could drive this a little bit stronger, even if Bitcoin or some of the other alts decide to pull back a little bit. So of course, I always maintain stops. I never say 100% just let it go. There's always at some point where I say, just get out of the way. I was wrong. The trade's not working, yada, yada. At some point, you have to have a risk management level. So that's what I'm looking at. Litecoin still looking pretty good. Let's go to ETH real quick here before we do the other ones, because ETH is one I've been watching here. Very important. On the daily chart, this is an interesting setup here. So let me zoom out. On the daily chart, we saw that it had this huge spike here a couple weeks back, and it's just kind of been pulling back into this moving average pair, into this support level, which was support back here. If you look at, back in January, February, you had that support level that had a pretty good rally, ultimately was the top, right, that we've seen this year. And then it just had a really steep decline, got very oversold, had a very nice counter trend trade, pulling right back. Now the question is, was this just kind of a flash in the pan spike, or do we start to see some support show up again around this level? And what I'm watching this guy here is for a daily breakout of this little bull flag pattern that is starting to form. Now it's getting a little long in the tooth, admittedly, right? It's been just kind of drifting lower for quite some time. Generally, you'd like to see them not as long, maybe 4, 5, 6 candles. This one's kind of out there now. So keep that in mind. The moving averages are rolling over a little bit, but if it can push higher and get over this downward trend line, which at this point lines up with, that 315 level, 3,200 would be a solid confirmation, right? Above that, then I'd be looking for some trend continuation and potential reversal or rotation out of BTC into some more of these alts. But I'm keeping an eye on this one. You can see even in recent past, it's still lagging Bitcoin. Not that much. It's kind of holding up, but it's still lagging Bitcoin. So just something to make note of. But I'm watching it here. Definitely when I'm looking at, I started initial position during the dip yesterday. I had that spike, took an initial position here, spiked back up. It's kind of just been choppy. Hasn't done a whole lot since then. So again, not a huge position, just starting to take some nibbles as a way for me to, I guess you can say, bank some of the profit on BTC by rotating into ETH, but still predominantly Bitcoin, holding some Litecoin, holding some ETH at this point. But that's what I'm watching here. Now on the USD side, of course, looks much stronger just because Bitcoin is so strong. And this one's seeing a little bit of a setup here. So this setup's really nice on the daily chart. Very similar to BTC. You can say a little bit of an ascending triangle base. Did technically have a breakout yesterday, but is pulling back here a little bit. So as long as it holds up above this breakout line, the 10 EMA really, so 250. Holding above 250, ETH USD pair still looks pretty solid. Let me clear some of these lines at this point. Holding above 250 is what I'd be wanting to see on this guy. And then next target up is around 300 on this guy. So that's what I'm wanting to see hold. If it breaks below that, then below 230 really starts to look negative at that point. All right, so we've only covered BTC, Litecoin. I'm going to make some notes here for the video later. ETH. And let me go through some of these comments here. Thank you guys for being here. Thank you for watching. Thank you for the likes. For those of you here in the United States, happy Memorial Day. I was going to say, I got the hope you got the day off. I technically, I don't know if I gave myself the day off. I technically didn't. I came into the office and I just doing some catching up and all that good stuff here today. And I thought, let's do a live stream. Stock market's closed today, so taking advantage and kind of prepping for the week here. Kind of glad I didn't go camping this year. It's actually been quite beautiful outside here in Arizona. It's probably one of the coolest Memorial Days that I can remember. Probably the coolest one in the last 10 years. No joke. It was like almost cold. All right, let's go to EOS because EOS is looking really good here, breaking out of some nice levels. Now I was watching EOS here, and I missed this one here on this guy again. Weekend, taking it easy. But I was looking at EOS here last couple of days. This is those two levels that I was watching on EOS. This first line you can see was kind of the bear downtrend line that I wanted to see clear, which it just did here today. And then there was a little bit more intermediate, steeper trend line, which was an early signal. And we saw that take that out yesterday or 2 days ago here on this candle, right? So that was really the first one there, popped, hit the second trend line. It started to pull in yesterday when Bitcoin had that little bit of a spike over. Most of the alts popped, but look at EOS, how quickly it recovered. Big bullish engulfing candle, very nice. And then today, finally popping, following through. I know EOS has some fundamental catalysts that are starting to drive this heading into June, July, so that's going to be interesting to watch. Absolutely, it's looking good. Clearing some resistance here. You can see this was kind of the swing high resistance. So it's broken the trend line, it's back above moving average, and now it's clearing this resistance. Now, would I chase it at this point? I personally would not. So I'm looking for two things in terms of a potential entry on this guy. If I wasn't in already, or if I'm not in, either a little bit of a bull flag back to these moving averages, or just kind of like some sideways consolidation above this breakout point, which is around that 8,400 level. If we zoom in here a little bit, might get a little bit more clues here on the 1 hour chart, had that big spike. I generally don't like to see those long wicks, big reversal. I mean, look at the volume on that. That was a ton of selling at that high. That's really odd to see. Then let's zoom in a little bit more. There's your 30-minute chart. I mean, closed near the highs here, but kind of pulled back the next candle. So interesting to see that. Pretty good wick showing up here, but let's go back to the hours. Looking at the 1 hour chart, you can see the moving averages are 10 EMAs right here on the 1 hour view, just above 84 or below 8,400. That's likely the first level to land. Then below that, 8,200, right? And if you look at the breakout point here, this resistance level, right? This was kind of the big resistance level here. That's the first moving average. And if you look at the breakout point, that's back in here. So a pullback to that window would be a good place to start looking for some support to show up. So if you see a little bit of pause, pullback into this window here between 82 and 8,400, then that may be the place to look for a signal to jump on, right? That's what I'm going to be watching here. So looking at that guy, that's what I'm going to be doing. And I'm going to put an alert here just to keep an eye on this guy dropping it before 8,400 and then 8,200 if I get some of those pinging. maybe maybe we jump in on that. So we'll see. I'm not. I don't know. I'm just not in the mood to FOMO. I think taking the slower trade approach right now has been working out pretty good, especially with Bitcoin so strong. I'm not in a hurry to necessarily jump into the alts unless there's just really good setups. A couple weeks back, the alts were just getting smashed so hard. I was front running that. That was just a good opportunity. Now we've seen a bounce. Now we've seen some potential reversals. So good to see that. But at this point, it's okay to slow down a little bit. Take some dip entries there. Let's look at EOS really quick from the dollar pair because that one's also looking pretty good here. EOS dollar. Go on Bitfinex here. Very solid breakout here on EOS dollar. If you look at the 680 level, that was a key inflection point here. You had the breakouts above that here a few days back. Very tight consolidation just over that. And then here today, popping higher. So very nice breakout and very good setup on EOS. If you look at the daily chart, let's zoom in here. Let's clear this old stuff here. Just look at how solid that uptrend has been since the bottom in December. I mean, yeah, it's been choppy, but look at how solid this uptrend has been. I mean, just beautiful uptrend, just trending nicely, holding up at the moving averages. This was the last kind of big breakout here. If you look at, this $6 level, essentially, that was a pretty good breakout, which also lined up with, the resistance level back here. So not unusual to see that. You had a pretty good run up, pause in April, right at that point. That was a good target level, came right back, and then tested it again, finally broke out, but it was kind of choppy in and around that level for a couple of weeks, finally getting going with some good volume. So it looks like the trend is clearly resuming on the way up. If you're looking at EOS dollar pair, what are the next targets? Next big target here is basically $9. And then above that, you really start to get into some interesting ranges because it gets a little bit more congested here. You start getting a little bit of the top, 1480. And then, of course, kind of the all-time highs in the 20s, the low 20s. And so that's what I'm watching on EOS. Does it have the potential to get there? Absolutely. I mean, it's just a strong name, strong trend right now. We'll see how far it goes. But so far, trend is your friend. Congratulations if you've been hodling the EOS since December. Unless you wrote it down from November, December, then congratulations. Then good hodl. Good job. Oh, I know it was a rough couple months. Let us never speak of that again. Okay. So EOS definitely looking good. Let me catch up on some of these comments here. Bat. Yeah, Bat was hitting the radar today. Let me go over here real quick. I'm going to go to my the automated watch list, which I'm going to give a shout out to Brandon and Michael, if you're listening, a couple of guys in the group that have partnered with me and have helped me in terms of developing this and kind of bringing it to fruition. So good job by those guys, and it's working nicely. So looking at this here, looking at the BMI index here, let me filter this out. So for those of you that are not familiar with this, the top BMI index, so BMI stands for Bull Momentum Index. It's a proprietary indicator that I developed, and I use it a couple of different ways. One of the ways I use it here is to curate a list of the top altcoins, or honestly any name, even Bitcoin, that is ranked certain BMI. We look at other factors as well to kind of filter the list out. And what this does is it kind of just gives you a picture of what are the strongest names, where are they showing up. So when you see those coins that just really start to take off and run and go on those crazy runs, they always show up here first. I mean, they just start to pop on this list and they stay on the list persistently. I also look at the list as a way to kind of gauge the market as a barometer, right? What's on the list? When the market's kind of choppy and sideways and I come to this page, generally it's a bunch of crap coins and small cap names and just nothing. But when it looks like this, when you have Tron and EOS and Ripple and Litecoin and Ethereum and Lumens and Neo and Ontology, this is good. This is what you liked, right? When you start to see some of the bigger cap, mid cap names start to dominate, start to show some strength, this is what you're looking at. Now, there's two ways to look at it too, right? XRP USD Tether, right? EOS USD Tether, Tron USD Tether. So you have to keep that in mind. A lot of this is basically Bitcoin kind of pulling all boats up with the tide, if you will. But what I look for is this, right? What are the BTC pairs that are outperforming? those are the names that you want to pay attention to because those are the ones that are outperforming Bitcoin. And so that's how I generally will start to use this list as a filter to kind of find setups for the week. So Ripple, Tron, EOS, Litecoin, Monaco, POA, some names from yesteryear. We'll take a look at those. Let me see what's versus BTC. But we'll take a look at some of those here. What else do you guys got? 0x. Take a look at that. All right. And BAT, yeah, BAT's been popping here a little bit. So if we go to the alerts, what else has popped up on the alerts today? Let's go to the on the move alerts. IOST, Stellar, Cardano popping a little bit here. Ontology popping a little bit here. Take a look at a few of those names. So I'm going to make a list here. I'll go BAT. Some of you guys want to look at BAT. We'll look at 0x. We'll look at Ontology, Cardano. We'll go from there. All right. Good stuff. So we looked at EOS. Very nice setup there. Let's look at BAT. BAT BTC. So this is the daily chart on Binance. And I always start with the broader picture, right? You look at the daily chart just to kind of get a feel for what's the overall trend. And of course, the trend is still down predominantly for BAT. It's had some nice little counter trend rallies, but nothing sustainable yet, right? You can see the moving averages have inverted bearishly. The 10 EMA continues to act as a daily resistance level on the BAT BTC pair. And so just keep that in mind. Also starting to make new lows, right? You got a low here, you got technically a new low there, and now you're making a new relative low. It is bouncing today. Volume is picking up today, so that's positive. It's still below the moving average pair. So let's zoom in here a little bit and see if maybe we start to see an early reversal signal on BAT. So if we go to the 4-hour view of BAT BTC, you know, I had some pretty good spikes here today, but just not exactly bullish yet. What I'd like to see is this little near-term trend starting to turn the corner here, right? Starting to close above this little bit of a level, 4,300, 4,400, and then start to go higher, making a series of higher highs and higher lows on the 4-hour view. At that point, it may begin to turn the corner on that daily chart, right? And we saw a pretty good attempt of this a couple weeks back. I mean, it had a little double bottom. You could argue for that. It looked like it was getting going. I actually took a shot at BAT here. It went up a little bit, but never was able to clear the neckline and then just rolled over. Finally had to cut it loose. And so far, it's still just kind of drifting lower. So until that can turn, I think there are better options out there at the moment. Let's look at 0x. 0x. I'm going to go to the daily chart here. This is a name I haven't seen in a while. Maybe finding a bottom here. It'd be nice to see this double bottom out here right now. You can see how steep this drop was. It finally landed here around this, what is that, 35.30 level. Pretty good bounce, of course, right into the moving average there. Unable to clear it. And then a big wick down on Binance here, a little bit of a spike. But if it can hold up at this level, then I'd start paying attention for maybe a double bottom to start showing up. Ultimately, I want to see it start holding above at least the near-term moving average, the 10 EMA. It tried to back here, but just rolled over at the 22. Still below the 10 EMA on the daily. Not exactly, again, just like BAT, right? Not exactly super strong versus Bitcoin. And most alts aren't at this point, to be honest. I mean, most of the alts are really just lagging BTC. The Bitcoin rally has just continued to to suck a lot of capital out of the alts for now, but I expect they will bottom out, and this could be the potential reversal we're starting to see. A lot of the alts are starting to kind of go flat now versus Bitcoin, but we still need to see some stronger, more sustained moves, right? When you start to see those 30, 40 percenters, a couple of days in a row, 20%, 10%, then you start to really see, okay, maybe we're starting to turn the corner here, right? For now, they've been short-lived for the most part. Ontology. Let's look at ONT BTC here. Pop in a little bit. It's interesting too, because this one was showing up on the was that an alert or was that on the indicators? Well, Ontology dollar showed up on the BMI watch list. That's because it was the USD pair with BTC. Did show up on the alerts though as a move today. Little spike here. Maybe that one's popping off the lows, and it's good. They found some support at the same level right here. You know, support and resistance levels really are just kind of the fundamentals. They're just so important and so simple in some ways, right? You just kind of look at horizontal price and support levels, but it just tells you a lot about a market, right? Because it tells you that at some price, this is where the buyers started to show up, right? The sellers lost the battle there. And then you got a good reversal. And then, of course, the flip side is true here. At some price, the sellers started to show up here. And so you pay attention to those key support and resistance levels. And here we are bouncing back again from an important support level. Now, will it hold, right? That's always the question. Is it just a bounce before it finally rolls over? But what you want to see is some follow through. The good thing about this one here is there's some volume spiking here on these green candles. So that's good. Price is now getting above the moving averages, trying to clear this downtrend here a little bit, which is positive. So definitely one I'm going to be watching here over the next couple of days. If it can start to hold above this one, especially the high of this little wick that it just put in, I'd really like that one here. So I'm going to put an alert here, 1720. If it starts to move above that, definitely one to be looking at here. So interesting ontology here. Let me read your comments here. Icon. Yeah, let me put that on the list. ICX has been a tough one. It was looking good. Yeah, BNB. How can I forget about the BNB? We'll look at MCO because I was on the list here. Cool. So there's ontology. Let's go look at it from the USD pair real quick, just to get an alternative perspective here. Had a nice little breakout on this pair, kind of clearing a little resistance there around that $1.40 mark. If it can start holding up here, that'd look good. That would support the potential reversal case that you're seeing on the BTC pair. And so if it continues to hold up above $1.40, then I'd be looking at another run to this most recent high around that $1.65 level. And then a break above that, which, you know, that was also resistance back here in April. So you've already had that full retracement twice. You had the pullback, and now it's going. I bet you that's forming a big cup and handle on the daily, right? That's got to be. Let's go see this. Oh yeah, that's a pretty decent cup and handle on the daily. A little bit deep on the pullback, but certainly a case to be made for the daily cup and handle there. And it's right below a key resistance level. If you look left, you go back here, way back here. I mean, it's just lining up almost perfectly with this big resistance level that broke down here in November. And so you're starting to see a rally, pulled back, a retest of that. You guys remember that? That was a big alt rally day we saw. I did a live stream on that day, and sure enough, went right to the target, and that's where it stopped, pulled back, but it's still holding above these moving averages on the daily. So that's positive. That's solid. I'd be keeping an eye on that one here. That's a good hold. Starting to see the corner turn here. Where would I go from here? Let's see here. If you do a measured move on this, that's going to be a big move if it actually does break out of that. You're looking at about 220 as the projected target, which, you know, kind of lines up with this back here. So would certainly be a logical place for a target. How big of a move is that? From current prices, that is 43%. Not bad. Not bad. 43%. Interesting. One to watch. Definitely one to watch. All right. Ontology, Cardano, Icon. And these names, I'm just picking them off of the watch list and the alerts here today. And I'm also looking at names that you guys got in terms of names you want to look at. You guys want to look at NEO? We'll take a look at that one. Cool. All right. Let's keep going here. We'll look at a few others that I'm watching for the week here. Ontology looks good there. Cardano, let's go Cardano BTC. Daily chart, potential double bottom forming on this guy right now. No confirmation yet. It was trying to get going here earlier, but just kind of a watch item for now, right? It had that big spike off the lows here. Again, right to the moving averages, unable to clear it. Maybe making a higher low, maybe a double bottom right here. So that's going to be the watch on Cardano. But until it can actually start to turn the corner, show some sustained momentum, going to wait on this guy. I like the volume coming in here today, but big wicks too. So kind of held a little bit of a volume push here today. Still living below some resistance there. So above 1040, if it can start to hold above that on a closing basis, maybe that's kind of an early signal that it's ready to get going again here. ICX, Icon. Let's go to Icon, BTC. Man, it was setting up really nice. Looked like it was getting ready to push and just could not break that 520 level on a sustain. I mean, it had one candle close above that and just gave it all up the following candle. So this blue line that I have here, this little zone around that 520, 530 level, that's, you know, that was kind of the wall for me. Didn't clear. Now it's pulling right back to the lows here. So it's got to hold that 420 level. Breaking below that, man, you've probably got new lows coming on Icon. So I'd be watching for, it's got to hold above this line. 420. Poor Icon. No love for Icon. All right, let's go BNB. Let me do ZIL. I didn't do ZIL. I'll put that on the list here. Looking at the ZIL. BNB. Nice little breakout of BNB versus BTC. Spiked and then just really rolling over. I know the BNB dollar looks solid, but my personal opinion, the BNB BTC pair does not look good. Not at the moment. I mean, May has been a little bit of a choppy month. If you zoom out, I mean, look at how sideways it is, right? Not bad from that perspective. Obviously, it's just kind of consolidating the monster move, but it's just gotten so choppy here lately. I mean, just very spiky, kind of all over the place. Not a clean pattern at all, right? It's rallied back from the hack days, and now it's kind of made a little bit lower high. And so best case for the bulls, if you're a BNB bull, is versus Bitcoin at least, right? It starts to get back above that 4,500 level. Then that looks real positive. Worst case, you don't want to see it get back below, what is that, 30, call it 32.3. At this point, if it starts to close below this guy, then that, you know, this recovery from this low, made a new lower low, that was good because it kind of washed things out, bounced right back strongly. Very good. But if it starts to get below that, then yeah, that's going to really start to confirm this choppy range was a little bit more of a distribution range. And that was my good old friend CZ saying, hey, you should really load up on 4,000 more BNB. You know, sounds like a good idea. Lottery tickets. Oh, but hey, it's all good. BNB and long term, I mean, you can't argue with, you know, they're just very successful. They're doing a lot of the right things. I use Binance. I mean, nothing against them. Just the price action here, definitely looking a little bit choppy. I'd be cautious until it starts to hold back above, you know, 44, 4,500 or so. Could just be a big consolidation zone, but got to prove it to me first. Let's see, BNB dollar. BNB dollar is just, you know, still making new highs, so nothing to complain there. Broke above that old high at 23, just keeps going. So no complaints. All right. I'm going to keep going here. Let's see what's on the list here. MCO, we'll start to speed things up a little bit. We've done quite a few in depth here, looking at crypto.com, Monaco. Man, that's a spiky name. Choppy. Pretty big move here today, though. Let's go to the 4-hour view. A lot of volume coming in here. Again, this one did hit the automated watch list, so it's on here, showing some life. Very choppy. This is a tough one for me to ever trade. I mean, if you're a longer term holder, maybe that's different. But from a trading perspective, just the lower volume names, lower liquidity, and look at how long these wicks are. I mean, unless you're doing some quick scalps, that's very tough. I mean, look at the wicks are 27% long, 25% long, 16. I mean, that's a tough one. Good for some scalping here, but longer term, tough for me. Is it putting in a low? It absolutely looks like it might be putting in a low versus BTC, but again, not exactly a tight range either. It's just kind of very, very range bound here for now. NEO. IOST. Yeah, let's put IOST on the list. I saw that one showing up on the alerts today. Let's do some IOST. So this is NEO BTC here. Did have that nice little spike a couple weeks back. Made for a good trade, that's for sure. Rode that one up a little bit. Booked those gains. It's just kind of still rolling back here. Haven't done a whole lot with it. If we zoom in here, I did take a shot at NEO last week. Let's look at it here. Kind of show you guys my thought process here. And so looking at NEO, this is what I was doing. The first rally, I rode this. This was nice. Then it started to kind of pause, pull back. Didn't do anything with it. And then last week, it had that big spike, that big candle off the lows. And so I was liking that one, but I was waiting for a pullback entry. And so what I ended up doing is picking up some NEO back here. It pulled back. Let me zoom in here for us. And it was setting up a potential little bull flag here on the 4-hour. Big spike higher, started to pull back. Now the volume here, the selling volume on the red candle was some little bit of a red flag here, no pun intended, but came right back to the moving averages. So at this point, I thought, okay, it's holding. I mean, that's from a probability perspective, that's a better place to buy it than up here. And so I was looking at that when it started to make that second green candle. I think 1530 or something was like my entry point, 1535. Had a spike, but we're just not able to get over that double top there, right? Hit resistance here again. And that was pretty much it. And then just started to roll over, hit my stop, got out of the way, and just has been adrift ever since, right? So the importance of a stop loss point, right? You take a shot, no big deal if it's wrong. At some point, you get out of the way. And look, I'm glad I did because it just continues to roll over. And so you got to get a stop. Now, could I have taken a little bit of profit into this double top? Sure, I could have. But, I mean, at that point, I would have been talking about a 4% gain. Like, it's not even worth it. I was just letting it ride. For me, the plan was, can it push through, take out this wick high here? And at that point, it'd be really setting up as a pretty solid trade. Then I'd be looking at, way up here at 17s or so. But that didn't happen. And so back to the drawing board. Let's zoom out here a little bit. Just continues to drift lower. I'm watching it if it can, it's still holding up way above this. But at this point, I'd just be waiting for a downtrend to break here. So it took a shot at it today. And if Ontology trades strong, they tend to have a little bit of a sympathy trade just because they're so closely, intertwined in some ways. So I'd be watching that. If Ontology starts to take off, NEO very often will have a sympathy trade or vice versa. If NEO is strong, very often you'll see an Ontology push. Just like Ripple, Stellar, right? They kind of tend to do the same thing. So watching that on NEO. But until it can start to hold above this, I'm going to just be careful. I do like the volume coming in here, but gotta prove it, right? It's got to prove it to me. So above, let's say 1440, getting above that level, I would start to maybe take a closer look at it. Zilliqa. Let's drink some water here. My voice is getting shot. One sec, guys. All right. So looking at ZIL, double bottom on ZIL, maybe. It was looking really good last week. Had a nice little rally, good spike. Very choppy action. Here's the positive thing about ZIL right here. I mean, yes, it's back to the low, so got to keep an eye on this, right? It's got to hold up about, what is that, 210? So holding above 210 is good. It's really testing it, so I'd be cautious. The negative, right, moving averages are still heading lower. The 10 is below the 22 EMA on the daily chart. So from a long-term time frame, technically in a downtrend still bearish, right, from that perspective. Sorry about that. There we go. So from that perspective, it's still technically negative, still bearish. What's positive here is, I mean, look at that volume coming in here as this thing really spiked. So definitely worth paying attention to at this point. But I want to see this thing hold, start to reverse off of this low here on that 210 and really get going again. Volume has really come down on this pullback. Again, another positive sign, but it's got to confirm now. It's got to get back above ideally above the high of yesterday or the day before. So 250 maybe, getting back above 250, start paying attention to it at that point. All right, so that's what I'm going to be watching on Zill. I'll make a note of that. 255. IOST. All right, I've educated you guys plenty. What's the trend? Clearly, downtrend, right? Moving averages, inverted, short term below the longer term. Price is still making new lows. So the one thing here again is maybe a reversal inverted hammer there, generally a little bit of a bullish candle, not a lot of follow through yet. So wait for the follow through to come through here. I haven't done IOTA yet. Let's do IOST on Bittrex, on Bitfinex, I mean. Trex just doesn't have a ton of volume these days. But, it's still holding the lows, but I mean, it's still trending lower. So I'd wait for it to really start to turn the corner here, make some reversals. It was spiking today, hit the alert system on this little bit of a push. So maybe getting back over, 160s, 170s starts to really look positive there. All right, IOTA. IOTA. Oh, yeah. Where is it here on the Binance? Why can't I see it? Where's my IOTA on Binance? Here we go. So near term, little intermediate trend break. That's positive here for IOTA. Maybe turning the corner here after pretty good pullback here on IOTA. Let's go to the daily chart here. Higher low potentially setting up on that daily chart. Again, still below these moving averages on the daily. That 10 EMA came really close to seeing a bullish crossover that day. And then the price just continued to drift lower, kind of negated that, pulling right back in. But they're going to go in flat now. So it wouldn't take a whole lot for a little bit of price movement up in this direction. These moving averages cross right back over. Prices right back over those moving averages. It starts to look pretty positive at that point. Then I'd be looking at this as a pretty solid higher low and a good, from a long-term perspective, a good stop loss point, obviously the most recent low. But from a trade perspective, maybe look at the 4-hour chart a little bit more finesse there in terms of the precise levels. But this one's looking pretty interesting here. Let's go to the 4-hour view again. Here's the 4-hour view. Pretty good action here today. Last two candles have been pretty strong. Some volumes kicking in here on IOTA. So, yeah, we'll see. It's looking pretty interesting here. If we can start to hold above this level here, what is this? 4,800, call it? 4,850? Definitely one to watch. How would I trade it? So let's go through the thought process. And there's 100 ways to do this. So how would I trade it? I would probably enter on a close over this here. Max stop loss would be that swing low, 45.40, call it. And for me, I generally want at least a 2-to-1 risk reward ratio for me to entertain the trade idea, right? So if you look at the resistance level, the first resistance level that's got to clear is right here. And so basing a target of the trade at that point does not give me my 2-to-1 ratio, right? At that point, I'm looking at 1.5. So from a risk reward perspective, that's just not my general take, right? Now, there's an alternative way to do it. If it jumps over the line and then pulls back in and makes a little bit of a higher low, let's say it does one of these guys, rallies, and it pulls back and then it starts to get going again, then at that point, I can enter, but now I can tighten my stop up. I can use the most recent pullback as my stop. And then even keeping the same target, suddenly my risk reward is almost 3-to-1, right? So same entry, even a higher entry, just a little bit tighter stop, a little bit better stop, really affects the numbers. And so at that point, I could jump in, and now my stop is like 2% with a 8% upside. Now, doesn't mean that it has to stop there. That's just my first target. Of course, my next target would be here, and then above that, right? You're looking at way up here is your next target. So when I'm setting up a trade, I will generally go through those numbers and look at, okay, where do I get in? Where do I get out? If if I'm wrong. And I kind of just do the math, and if it doesn't line up with what I want to see, then it's kind of a pass. Sometimes you miss a trade, but in the long run, if you're only taking the better setups, you tend to do better than if you're kind of just chasing everything. So that's my approach. It still looks pretty good though here. Potential reversals setting up on IOTA. All right, so thanks for being here, guys. If you're just joining, I will update the video notes. There is a discount code that I have posted for this course here. All caps, May 2019. I'll drop it in the comments. You can use that, get $40 off through the rest of the week, through May 31st on that guy here. So, all right, let's do a couple of more, and then we'll call it a stream. And then I will get out the courses. I did give away 2 courses here, and I will send those out for you guys today. Let's see what else we got. What else? BTT. Oh yeah, that one's really been going here. The just-in pumps. Tron and BTT. We didn't look at Tron. Let's look at both of those. BTT, TRX. Monero. Somebody asked about Monero. Let's look at that. Let's go with those first real quick. Monero BTC. Is it finally showing some life here? I was watching this one here. This one was looking pretty good a couple weeks back. Yeah, maybe finding a higher low on that daily chart. So that's good. Maybe a little bit of a higher low. Getting back above the 10 EMA today. Still below the 22, which you can see has been a little bit of a resistance level here on the daily. Big wicks right over it. Right back to it here today. If it can finally close above that, that may be a good signal that it's turning the trend. And then, of course, potentially breaking this little downtrend that it's been in here on the near term, signifying a higher low on the daily. That would be good. Maybe turning the corner big picture. Monero USD was really the way I was using this as a guide here. Did a little bit of trades on it last month. Oops, wrong one. I'll go to the dollar. And this is the way I was watching it. Monero dollar was kind of the better setup. But, of course, it's lagged BTC. So the question is always, would you rather be in Bitcoin or Monero? And if you're trading from a cash perspective, of course, it probably doesn't matter. If you're trading from a BTC pair, then you're better off just holding BTC. But this was a nice breakout over that $72 mark. It hit my targets, kind of went right through it. The next target was $90. It went to 96, pulling back, choppy, getting going again here as it's pushing off the lows on the BTC pair. So pretty good from that perspective. Next target up, about 104 and then 115. So good retracement on Monero. I mean, man, Monero was down to $40 here at the lows. It's amazing. All right, BTT. Cutie for blockchain. All right, let's look at the BTT here. What a nice move it's been in here the last couple of days. Let's go to the dollar pair. That's really the better volume, if you will. But I mean, breaking this downtrend, that was it. Solid break of the downtrend. The volume wasn't particularly huge on that day that it broke above that, but still pretty good. And of course, just continues to follow through. Long term, from a fundamentals perspective, there's just going to be so much supply on this coin. It makes you wonder what it'll do, but definitely being pumped right now pretty good. And took out the highs, the February highs. That's pretty nice. Took out those highs from back here. On a closing basis, this was really the breakout point. If you're using the wick, it's way up here. So those are your 2 levels. But on the closing basis, which is generally a little bit stronger, it's what I use. That was a good throwback entry. If you were looking for a breakout here, so you can see it pushed through, pulled right back. I mean, almost to the exact level, found support there, which also happened to correspond with the daily 10 EMA. So it's kind of nice when you see a confluence of levels lining up here, and it had a pretty strong push off of that, still going. Definitely extended, but Can't argue with that strength. It's strong right now. Tron. Look at that volume on Tron. The Justin pump. Maybe finally turning the corner here. Versus BTC. Look at that volume on that candle there. That was nice. Getting back above moving averages, right back to resistance, but I would bet it's probably going to clear this time. It's tried a couple of times. It was on my radar back here. They were able to clear it, pulling back, found some pretty good support. Looks like it's pushing through. I'm betting this time it makes it through. So that's got to keep an eye on this guy for sure. I'll put an alert just so I can get a reminder, come back and look at this one. How high can it go here? Let's go to the dollar pair on this guy. So Tron, USD, breaking above some resistance on the dollar pair. I've already got my chart marked up. Apparently I was looking at this one. That's a big break of resistance on the dollar pair, actually. That's pretty solid. Because this is resistance going way back here to August of 2018. And it's tried it, but notice the highs are starting to get higher, just really starting to tighten up here. At this point, you've got a very clear support level established for the year, right? That, call it 21 cent, 22 cent, 0.022. But that's a pretty solid break. Can't argue with this one. This continues to hold above that 0.03 level. Definitely one I'm going to keep an eye on. So, yep. Then you're looking at your next target at around 4 cents, 0.04. And then, of course, the alt highs at basically 5 cents. Not bad. Not bad. All right. Okay, my friends. I'm thinking we are done here. We'll cycle through a few of these real quick. We'll take one more look at BTC before I call it a day because I want to go take a look at what that's doing here today. It's going to be an interesting week. Bitcoin breaking out. What happens? Does it hold? Does it pull back? Kind of be interesting here. XLM, you're looking at probably the dollar pair, I'm guessing. XLM dollar. Yeah. Well, yeah, I could argue. You could make a good argument for an inverse head and shoulder on that for sure. You've got the left shoulder. You got a head here, a right shoulder. Let's do a fib analysis on this. Generally, I want the right shoulder to be no deeper than the 618 retracement level when you do that. That looks a little deep, but let's see how that looks. So if we do a fib analysis, I'll go use the wicks on this one. Wick to wick. Just barely undercut the 618. Not too bad. So it did hold up pretty good here for a few days and then just popped right through, but it quickly recovered. So not bad. Certainly a case to be made for that. It's had a nice rally, ton of volume showing up here as it tried to push through the first time. So definitely make note of that. But if it does a measured move here, let's see where this guy can go. If you do a measured move, this guy, you're talking about basically 197, so 0.197 or so. And then 0.02, which, that lines up pretty well with this resistance level. It's always interesting when you see those measured move targets like just line up almost perfectly with some significant price point. So there you go. Would not argue against that. A little bit of a double bottom maybe forming on the BTC pair. Go back to that one here. Higher low, a little bit of a higher low. Still lagging though. I mean, still below moving averages, not exactly outperforming Bitcoin yet. Yeah, Link was on a tear, finally pausing. Pulling back, it still looks a little toppy here. I mean, it had a solid double top there on that 4-hour view. Looked pretty good double top. Big volume showing up here, big selling volume on that first peak. Here's your break, the neckline broke through. Looks like it's already reached the double top target. Yep, sure did. Almost exactly. It's bouncing off there a little bit. So if you like it, might not be a bad place to look at it here. Hit the target on the double top. Not exactly strong looking, but if you're looking for a bounce or a secondary entry on the pullback, this might be where you look at it because it's holding up. See how it looks on the daily. It's right back to the moving averages on the daily. So again, not a bad place to potentially look at it. Omisego. Oh man. Oh man. Still not getting any love on the BTC pair. A little volume today. A lot of names are showing some volume today. Yeah, maybe. Let's go dollar real quick. Some good support at the $1.86, $1.87. Looks like he wants to test the highs here at 235. It's not a bad setup here on the dollar pair. Let's go with Bitfinex just because it's got a lot more history. So Bitfinex, Omisego breaking over 250 would maybe bring some life back into this name. Right there. And it's looking like it wants to set up for that. So a lot of these names from the altcoin perspective, right? Like for the most part, I've been mostly just BTC predominantly in recent history, right? Certainly holding some small alts bags, but mostly BTC. But I'm looking at a lot of these dollar pairs. I mean, just crazy to see how far they've come down, right, from the highs. Now, I'm not saying, you know, they're all going to go back to the highs, right? Omisego may never see $22 again. Who knows, right? But even a partial retracement up to, you know, halfway up or whatever, I mean, those are massive gains. You got 115% there. You know, you've got 280% there. And so I'm looking at a lot of these thinking, man, I think we're getting close to make the switch here in terms of starting to scoop some of these names up for, you know, a little bit more of a longer term hold, right? Not necessarily trades, but just kind of a few months out, letting them ride. You know, names that have the potential to double, right? So you look at names like Neo Dollar, you know, and it's down here at $13. Could it double and go to 26? Like, yeah, like looking at the chart, like that's not even that much of a stretch. Looking at EOS, right? EOS dollar, it's already having a nice push. But you look at that, you know, it's already back up to $8. Could it go to 16, 15? It sure could, right? You look at, you know, of course the big cap names, those are a little bit tougher, but Ontology, right? We just looked at Ontology. Ontology, right? It's $1.50. Could it go to 250? Could it go to 3? I mean, it could. I mean, I'm not saying these are all going to double from here, but you know, I'm starting to see some of these setups going. They're looking pretty enticing. Maybe time to switch a little bit more out of the BTC side. But again, I'm using the BTC pairs as some good signals, right? Right now, oh my arrows. Right now, you know, they're potentially forming these reversal patterns, right? They've had the big push, the rally, potentially holding support, right? They're at the support levels. This is where you want to see them hold. I mean, these are long time support levels on the BTC pairs. If you look at ETH, right? ETH BTC weekly chart. Let's go to Coinbase. Long time support level right here. It's got to hold, right? This is 2016 back here. This breakout here was March of 17, December of 17. You know, the 2018 holds. Like this is where you want to see these guys bounce nicely. So yeah, we'll see. Again, I'm not necessarily ready just yet to make the full switch. Still think holding more BTC than not is going to be beneficial, especially if there's like a surprise approval of an ETF or something. You know, you just want to have some exposure to BTC for sure. So, but that's my opinion, not financial advice. Is always the case. All right, guys, let's go take a look at BTC here. We'll call it a stream. I'm going to do it two ways. I'm going to go Coinbase. I'm going to do on Binance. We'll look at the tether pair, and then we'll go from there. So looking at the daily chart, again, solid breakout over that first target, 9K. We basically hit that, 89.50, 89.60 today. What was the high? 89.47. So basically hit that. I think the ETF means a lot. It means a lot more than people think. Not as much as people think, but it's going to be a big boost for the price of Bitcoin if it gets approved. 9K was the first target. That was really it. And then 9,800. But as I mentioned, yeah, the divergence, keep an eye on that here. I mentioned this at the beginning of the stream. Never a sign by itself as a sell signal, but to me, I'm watching, if we get a push into this next target zone and this starts to roll over and really just not confirm, then this could be kind of the last hoorah before you get a little bit deeper of a pullback, right? A little bit longer of a pause, which come on, we all got to say it's due. And if you look at some retracement levels, let's say it topped today. I'm not saying it's topping today, but let's say it topped today. Then, the 382 only takes you back to 7,100, right? 618, which would be a pretty deep retracement, takes you all the way back to basically 6K. So those, kind of anywhere in between that, even if it pulled back that far, would still be okay, right? If you had a little bit of a downtrend and it pushed back to 6K, or not 5, but 665 or so, that'd be a place to start watching to see if you get a little bit of a bounce here for the longer term. On the weekly chart, look at this. On the weekly charts, let me zoom in here for us. That basically takes you right to the 22 weekly EMA, the 618 retracement on the weekly. Like, it would be a very healthy pullback. It would freak some people out. It would clear out some of the euphoria, but it would really set the stage for a nice, kind of solid higher low on the weekly, from which it could finally at that point push through. And then, yes, we could start talking, here comes 10K, here comes 15K and all that stuff. But there's no doubt this weekly chart is a little extended now, needs a little bit of a breather, whether that's in price or time, right? And when I mean time, either it's going to just kind of chop and sit tight for a little bit, or price, and it's going to give you back a pullback. And it's generally a combination of both, right? It's a pullback, doesn't go straight down, kind of grinds lower, and it lets moving averages catch up. It lets technicals like the RSI on the weekly being at 80 reset. That's could it go from here? Could it spike straight through 10K? Yeah, of course it could. There could be some news, there could be all of that. But if I was just purely looking at the charts, I'd be a lot more cautious about loading up at this level than I was, at 4,200, right? You just got to keep that in mind. It's all about kind of just probability, risk reward. Let's go to the BTC tether on Binance. And again, just basically, following pretty good. Hit almost at the target on that measured move. It was basically 9,000, a little over 9,000 on the daily chart. Again, similar structure. You got the RSI, the MACD histogram, probably really hard to see on the screen here, but there's one little tiny green tick, so it's officially ticked over into the green. We'll see if that can hold up. Again, my support levels for the last month, whatever you want to call it, has really been these moving averages, right? On the daily chart, it's just never closed below the moving averages. The moving averages are still heading up. If it begins to lose those and really start to roll over, if volume starts to kick in, then I'd be watching for, a little bit deeper of a pause or some slight, some sideways stuff. So, okay. So that's it for the BTC stuff here. To see how it looks on the short-term time frame. Still holding up. Was a little bit of spiky action here earlier today. Some volume coming off the highs at 8,900 on the tether pair. We'll see how it holds up. Bouncing back here a little bit. So cool. All right, guys. I will drop these notes
in the comments, but some of the names we did cover. If you missed it and you want to go back, in this order: BTC, LTC, ETH, EOS, BAT, 0x, Ontology, Cardano, Icon, BNB, MCO, NEO, ZIL, IOST, BTT. I missed a couple. I think we did Monero, Tron, and OMG. Something like that. All right. Cool, guys. Hey, well, appreciate you guys being here. Hope you have the good rest of your day. If you have the day off, enjoy a few hours. I'm going to take a break, go to the gym, do a little barbecuing here on the grill later today, and then back to the full swing of things first thing in the morning. Wish you all the best. Thanks for being here. Talk to you guys later. Take care.